Hi, I'm here for Sound on Sound at the Sonic Distribution headquarters in Hitchin, Hertfordshire, in the UK, world. That is of significance today because I'm here with James Young, who's going to be telling us about a new reflection filter, and it's called Space.
That's right.
James, tell us about it.
Well, the concept of Space was to improve on our existing Reflection Filter Pro design, which is something that's been out on the market now for 8 years. We actually came up with the reflection filter idea about 3 years before that, and we spent those 3 years trying to develop something that would actually work and not make your track sound worse. Because it's actually a big problem trying to get a portable acoustic recording device that works in a very small footprint is well, people said it was impossible at the time. And then when we brought it out, they went, oh, it'll never work. And then people started using it, producers, engineers, top artists all over the world. Now it's an industry standard, so we made it work. But for the last 8 years, we've been trying to work out ways that we can improve on it, and we've really focused on that for the last year and a half, 2 years. And so now we're ready to bring a new product to the market.
So it's called Space then, and it stands for?
Specialist Portable Acoustic Control Environment.
And what's the problem then with the solutions at the moment? What's the thing that you're trying to do with the Space that we didn't have before?
Well, I mean, Reflection Filter Pro had already kind of solved the problem initially, and what you had was a whole bunch of people that were more and more project studio users that had poor acoustic environments. They didn't have studios like this with, really decent acoustics in them, and so people would put egg boxes on the wall and all kinds of stuff. And we came up with the idea of trying to put something behind the mic that would improve the acoustics of the room effectively, or take away some of the bad stuff that the room gives you. And it is a real problem. The way that we did it, the patent is multi-layer technology and air gap technology. So you get a degree of isolation with the air gaps. The multiple layers of different materials basically diffuse and absorb different frequencies. You have a perforated diffuser on the back panel. We're using polyester fiberboard, which is a patented acoustic product on the front side of it, and then you've got absorption membranes and all sorts of stuff inside it. So there's quite a lot going on in a reflection filter. And then the issue that we had was that a couple of years after we brought this thing out, we then started seeing OEM companies imitating the product. I would say copying it, but if there were copies, then they work, and they don't. So imitation is what they are really, because some of them look quite similar.
With the punched aluminium.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of thing, but every single one of them is just foam, either foam on its own or on some sort of backing. Because they didn't want to break our patent, and so you can't use the multi-layer technology. But the issue that you got with foam is that all it does basically is it takes out some high frequency, and it leaves all of the problem area, the mids and lows that you always hear. You're always telling your sound on sound readership. That's the problem that you get in a small studio. Yeah. And the whole idea of a reflection filter is that it's supposed to filter out primary reflections. That's where the name came from. So if you use foam, what happens is that all of the low and mid stuff goes straight through it, bounces off the wall, comes straight back, and so you haven't got rid of any of the problem you were trying to.
Right, you just take the top end.
You're taking the top end off, so when you track, everything sounds a little bit dull. So you then reach for the EQ, and what you end up with is more noise, and still all of the mess that you had in the low and mids. So it's a good way to basically make sure that you destroy all your tracks and have a bad mix.
Okay.
But the problem is, a lot of customers out there don't realise that. So they think if they're buying one of these cheaper imitation products, that it's giving them some kind of acoustic control. And the idea of Space was to improve on what we already had, so we could re-message the whole, look, this is a serious bit of kit. It's not a toy. This is doing something which is really important in your studio. Your microphone, is recording acoustic stuff, strings, vocals, all the really important stuff in the songs that you're recording, hopefully. And so if you don't get the acoustics right, in fact, if you damage those, then you're making things worse. You need to have something which is really of a benefit to your mix. And so that's where we decided to progress and go, okay, well, we've already set the benchmark. Let's raise it and then retell the story so people understand what it's about.
So do you want to show us the actual filter then, the new Space filter?
Sure.
What does it look like? What does it do? What's different?
So this is it. This is what we spent all our time and money doing for the last 18 months or so. It's much bigger, first of all, than the old reflection filter. You won't be able to see that here because I'm not comparing it, but it is about 20% wider, 20% taller. And it's much deeper as well, which is important. So it's about 2 inches deep as opposed to 3/4 of an inch, which the old one was. Substantially bigger, yeah, and substantially thicker. It's got all new hardware as well. to run you through it, the larger surface area means that you prevent more of the direct source material reaching walls and surfaces to cause unwanted reflections. So that's really important because it's a reflection filter. You're trying to stop that source material from getting out into the room in the first place. That's what helps you to control it. The thicker layers of the materials that are in there, and that's all the kind of similar materials that were in the last one, but more of them. And you've got acoustic grade wool, you've got ribbed strengthened aluminium membrane absorber,
Right.
the punched aluminium, all of this are the polyester fiberboard, which is patented as well. All of these materials combined together mean better absorption.
So how many extra layers are there within the new filter?
There's just the one extra layer, but it's how those layers are put together that we've done a lot of research on and changed about. So and it's the thickness of the materials that helps the absorption.
So what sort of tests do you do when you're
Also too many. We do anechoic chamber tests. I mean, one of the things that people don't talk about is as well the it's not just how well the product operates in terms of absorbing and diffusing and eliminating primary reflections, but it's also about it not reflecting back stuff itself. And this is another big issue with the other imitation products. The ones that are just foam actually do less damage than some of the ones that look like they might be better quality. Because if you've got a solid plastic back, which some of them have, with a piece of foam stuck to it, then it takes out the high frequency and all of that mid and low stuff that you're trying to get rid of, that you're trying to filter out. Well, instead of filtering it, it's actually reflecting it, which is exactly the opposite of what you want it to do. And because they're kind of like concave shape, it's focusing it back onto the mic. So you're actually deliberately making the problem worse. You're taking all of that low and mid stuff and focusing it. Actually, they should be called reflecting noisemakers, not reflection filters, because they're basically adding noise and they're adding primary reflections, making the whole thing more unstable.
Right. Okay. So and yours, in contrast, so it lets more of the sound.
Well,
it
so
doesn't reflect it back.
It doesn't reflect it back. If you put a Reflection Filter Pro or the Reflection Filter Space into an anechoic chamber, put a mic in front of it and test the mic with and without the reflection filter, you'll see that the frequency plot is almost identical. The lines just, there's no difference between them at all. And that's showing you that whatever information isn't being absorbed or diffused by this thing is not being reflected back onto the microphone. That's really important, because if you're reflecting stuff back, you change the character of the microphone. So yeah, and then you've got the deeper air gaps. So you've got larger surface area, you've got the thicker layers, you've got deeper air gaps, and that means for better isolation. And we've actually increased the size of the air gaps as well by putting those vertical pillars in, so there's kind of like a well, if you like, for the air. And that has a secondary function, because those pillars on the back are kind of breaking up the diffuser and helping to randomise the diffusion of the back of the reflection filter.
Right.
So just in all areas, it's been greatly improved.
Cool.
So if you want the best, that's it. And if you want one that's, been the industry standard for the last 8 years, and the Reflection Filter Pro's out there.
Well, so let's just talk about the rest of the hardware. So back when the first one came out,
we had some issues, right? Just say it out loud.
Yeah,
we had some issues. Yeah, nobody liked our hardware at all. Sorry about that. We did try and revise it a couple of times, and the reason that we didn't do what a lot of the copy companies have done, which is just put a kind of straight bar on the back and something for it to sit on, which is much more stable, is because the Pro version is supposed to be able to angle so that you can get mic down into drum kits and use it for guitar cabs and all kinds of stuff. And so that is a useful function. But the trouble was that it also made it unstable. It would kind of rock around on the mic stand, and we did get a few people that weren't happy about that, and we tried to revise it, and finally we've come up with a new design for the hardware, which gives you vertical placement. It allows you to rotate horizontally, to rotate vertically, and to tilt as well. And it's all made for us by a drum hardware company. So it's really high quality. You've got interconnecting locking mechanisms for the whole thing. Right. It's lightweight because, again, and this is another point about the reflection filter, is the whole thing is really still quite lightweight because we've used different materials in there.
Even though it's bigger, it's still. Is it heavier than the original? I mean,
it's literally the same weight as the old Reflection Filter Pro, even though it's much bigger, because we've changed the hardware and we've used a lot more aluminium instead of steel.
Right.
Even though it's bigger, we've kept it pretty much exactly the same weight. So that's really important as well. So it's more stable on a stand, and we haven't increased the weight of it, even though we've increased the size.
Cool. That all sounds great. And so. When are they going to be available, and how much are they going to cost?
They are going to retail at £299, including VAT. They're going to be shipping end of this month, so end of May. We're going to be shipping out lots and lots of them, all over the
Fantastic.
place. And actually, we've already had a number of them. We've had a kind of, I don't know, about 30, 40 units out to some of the pro endorsees for SE that have been using the Reflection Filter Pro for years. And yeah, they've been very, very favourable results indeed. Yeah, we've had people coming back saying, this is just amazing. It sounds better than the £6,000 that I spent on my room. It's pretty cool, actually.
It's quite a bold claim, that.
Yeah. We're not making it. That's
no. Sure. We'll be intrigued to try.
Although
it when we get our hands on
it does
one.
sound pretty good. So I'm looking forward to seeing the comments coming back from people. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, James.
Thank you.